This week's guest is a global digital communications expert, AI educator, and hosts her own podcast called the AI 6 Podcast. She has written 4 books, including the AI Playbook. A Harvard Kennedy School graduate in AI and public policy, this Irish woman trains leaders across government, EU institutions, and the media, and has become a leading voice in AI literacy and digital transformation. She's originally from Donegal but lives in Galway. Joanne Sweeney, welcome to the Manon Eireann podcast.
Oh, Ciara, what an honor to be here. Congratulations on your podcast. And when you told me the title, I just got goosebumps. So thank you.
Yay. We met in Dublin at the Radio Days conference. That was probably around the same time last year.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. And you were there, and I was completely totally interested in what you were talking about is social media and news and fake news and deep fakes. And yeah, I was on an AI panel.
You were, and you were very impressive. So I'm very happy that you've joined me on the podcast. So let's get to the kind of main crux of this podcast. We're going to go through 3 defining moments. So let's start with your first defining moment.
Well, I guess it's got to be. The first one was becoming a mother at the age of 17. So that was in 1995. And you mentioned at the outset, I'm from Donegal, a little fishing village called Downings. Small seaside coastal village, beautiful part of the world. Many people might know it because it's quite famous, even though it's small. But the time, as you will appreciate, was a time when women were still, in some sense, being sent off if they discovered that they were pregnant, unmarried, and I was both unmarried and a teenager. And it was a shock. It was such a shock that I decided to hide it from everyone, including my mother, until she knocked on my door one morning and said, "Are you pregnant?" At my bedroom door, and I said, "Yeah." One of the neighbours had told her the news, and her response was quite remarkable. She said, "Okay, thank goodness. I thought you were very badly depressed." Because I had retreated and I'd stopped going to school because I'd fainted one morning waiting for the school bus. And I mean, I guess inherently I felt shame and fear and the weight of others knowing. Now, looking back in hindsight, if that was me now, I wouldn't feel it, but it was the weight of the time for sure, and Ireland at that time. So that was a huge defining moment for me. And I gave birth to Sophie on the 14th of September, 1995. She was a week late, and I'd had no prenatal classes. I didn't know what was happening. I had an asthma attack during the birth because the pain was terrible and I didn't know how to breathe through it. So I panicked. But she arrived and was absolutely gorgeous, full of life. And it was me and her. Unfortunately, her dad was killed in a car accident when she was just 5 months old. And I had already intended to go back to school because I knew that education was going to be our passport to independence. And I was back at school. I went back to school when she was 6 weeks old. She was sleeping all night from 3 weeks, and my mother minded her for me. And I used to wash dishes in the local hotel where I met her dad after school, just to help with extra money because my mum couldn't afford to have another little person in the house, so I had to pay my dues. And so yeah, it was. I was studying for the leaving cert. I was, washing dishes, and then 5 months later, on a night out, Henry Henry was there, and we were talking. Whatever, it was difficult for him too. You know what I mean? And that night, he decided to give 2 young lads a lift home who had missed their bus. So he was doing a good deed. And he says to me, "Sure, jump in." And for the reason that remains to me, to my mind today, is it was not my time. And I says, "I'll wait." And, you know, from the shock of giving birth 5 months previous to that night, unfortunately, the 3 of those young men lost their lives that night on the roads in Rathmullen in County Donegal. And it just reverberated right through every cell of my body. Like I lost my hearing for a couple of days because it from shock. And I guess it was my body saying I don't want to hear it. But those 5 months, as you will appreciate, changed me forever. For forever and ever. And I just said, I will do what I can to raise this baby and give her everything that I can. That just give me something that can only describe as a real impetus to live my life because I had the opportunity and I'd been also been gifted a daughter, and the shame went. The shame went, and it all made sense. The whole thing made sense in that moment. So yes, that's definitely the first big defining moment.
Yeah, and really there's two defining moments, the new baby and then the loss of her father. So sad. And did your mom obviously was such a support to you.
Yeah, absolutely. She minded Sophie when I went back to school, and my little sisters were about 7 and 8 then. So it's almost like they had a new little sister in the house, and still, 30 years on today, those three girls are very, very close. My dream was to get a place in university. Like I used to, like I have W.B. Yeats above my desk here. He's my favorite Irish poet, and so I used to read Yeats and Shakespeare to her, and they were her bedtime stories. But I was committed to the goal, and yeah, with mum's support, I was able to go to school. And when I went to school, Kira, let me tell you, I was Joanne, and I loved that. The school was so good to me. They saw me, not, the single mother or the teenage mother. And I just loved those days, but I'll not stress it up. It was extremely hard. And when I look back, I think I was mostly operating on autopilot and not really knowing what the job was, but I decided I'd get stuck in and get on with it.
Yeah, well done. I mean, kudos to you and then kudos to your mother and kudos to the school because like you said, there was a lot of shame in Ireland around that time and before that time. And you don't know what, could have happened. You could have gone the other way as well, and that's just fantastic that you were supported and you're obviously strong enough, Manana Heron, to keep going, So it's wow, that's an amazing or two amazing defining moments, really. Um, and then so we'll just say your second one. What is that one?
Well, that's got to be opening up my leaving cert results, which people might find, gosh, why is that one? Most people have the fear over the leaving cert results. But I remember that day as clearly as I remember giving birth to Sophie, because this was the goal. And went into Mulroy College in Milford in County Donegal. It was the tech back then. And the waiting for the brown envelope and being with my friends and just being so emotional and so fearful because I'd studied what grades I needed, what points I needed to get to university. And my principal, Cathal Green, coming over and he just nodded. He says, it's okay. Because he knew what was in the brown envelope, right? And it was a moment going, wow, I am going to university. I got my place. I was over the points to do, arts. So I wanted to be a journalist. And that was going to be my route to journalism. And I was so proud. And still to this day, it's one of the proudest moments for me because I did it against all odds. And when I was personally a complete mess, but what I can say, and I still know it today, knowledge, education, writing and reading and investing in something that I'm interested in has kept me on the straight and narrow and it kind of calibrates me. So yeah, I got the points to go to Galway. And then the next decision was, well, how are we going to get there? Where are we going to live? And who's going to mind Sophie? I had none of that sorted out. None of it.
But you sorted it out, I assume.
I did. I went to the phone box at the top of the road where I was living to make calls. We got on the Fido O'Donnell bus from Donegal to Galway with all our worldly belongings with us and found a house and shared it with my friend Sinead and three other guys from Donegal. And I then got jobs. The university were really good to me, the University of Galway. I went to the Students' Union, I got the cloakroom job, I got the job in Smokey's Cafe, which were great jobs, and it meant I could do it while Sophie was in creche. And actually, back then, I applied for third level allowance, which meant I'd get, rent allowance and other benefits on top of my lone parents. But I was underage. They suggested that I stay out of education until I was 23. But I said, that will cost the state £8,500. I want to go now because I have my place. And so I self-funded that as well, which was it was difficult, but again, it's just the lesson. Don't worry about the how. If you know why you're doing something and it's for the greater good, just plow on. And again, with great friends, they used to help me mind Sophie.
Yeah, and also if you'd waited that length of time, what are you going to be doing in the meantime?
And sure, would I have ever gone back? You know?
Well, yeah, exactly. So then so you went and did arts in Galway, and then what did you do then?
Yeah, so I had my eye on the next prize, which was one of 13 places in what's now the Masters in Journalism at the University of Galway. And so I started developing a portfolio. I volunteered at the university newspaper. And then actually, I worked on the rebrand from Cool Canch to Sin Student Independent News. And that's over 20 years ago, and that paper still remains today with that name on it. And I became the first editor of it, and that helped me get my place in the journalism class. And it led me to my first job in Highland Radio in Donegal, the newsiest county in Ireland. I covered the Morris Tribunal, the Savile inquiry into Bloody Sunday, many criminal trials, council meetings, health boards, the first the first meeting of the cabinet actually in Glenveigh Castle. So great stories. And I guess, again, my journalistic integrity and nose is still there because now I'm a communications and digital marketer, but in the public interest and working with government and public sector. So yeah, I always kind of felt that the voice of the citizen was something I cared about because I was that citizen kind of battling the state, trying to, pursue what I knew was the best for me and my daughter.
Yeah, and so you understand both sides,
Mm.
which is really important. And then your third defining moment.
So then the third defining moment was another part of my life that just completely shifted everything. And that was getting divorced. And for any man, Eireann, who's gone through a divorce, they will absolutely say that it is something that kind of rocks and shakes them to their core for whatever reason. It's just a difficult process. Now, thankfully, some wise parliamentarians decided to reduce the time of separation to divorce from 5 years to 3. So that kind of narrowed the pain threshold, but it's still very difficult. It's costly, it's painful, there's children involved, and it's just really, really stressful. And so I was and still am self employed at the time. And, there's no time off for stress, depression. You just have to power through. And I just had to power through and just keep showing up every day because that was my income. And yeah, I kind of was single parenting for the second time in my life because I now have a son. He's 16. Again, I had to start from, finding a place to live and just, again, starting off on and actually just finding myself again, which sounds kind of a little bit, of a cliche, but it's actually true. And I remember somebody saying to me actually in a book writing class that I was in, Joanne, you are successfully lost in your 40s. And I went, that's it. And it made so much perfect sense. I didn't have the answers. I had to make new goals, redefine myself after, being in a relationship for 17 years and then coming out to this world on your own. And yeah, so that definitely was a big redefining moment. But, I always believe in things happening for a reason and making the best out of a situation. And certainly I'm much stronger and better for it now.
Yeah, I was going to say, how are you since so it was a defining moment, and obviously, you were saying that it was painful, whatever happened, but how are you now?
I'm fantastic. And, people say to me, you look younger than you did 10 years ago. And I do. And I look back on photos of myself and I can see that I was stressed. I was strung up and, I was lost. But just the weight of being in the right place for me is just so joyful. I love my own company. I love that my little business allows me to create books and podcasts and, you know, go to Harvard. And so I'm really flourishing now. And what I would say, Kira, is, you know, I guess at this stage in my life, and my son is 16 now, I'm probably going to be, soon the most independent that I've been ever in my life because I've been parenting for 30 years and I've always had massive responsibility. And I always will because I'm still parenting the 30-year-old, right?
You're still their mother.
I'm still a mother. It can't clock off. And I'm also a grandmother now and I do lots of babysitting. So, but I just think when my friends traveled, in their teens and in their 20s, I still have lots of goals that I want to do. And I think that coming into, I'm in my late 40s, coming to my 50s, I've so much to do, so much I want to achieve and don't know what it is, but I'm a firm believer in doors opening that you've never dreamed of if you just keep your mind open.
I agree with you. I believe that too. We're looking younger by the day. um, Thank you for the three defining moments. They were really amazing. So thank you for being so honest with me as well and our listeners. Um, so the title of this podcast is Manona Heron, and how I came up with this was that I was going to a lot of gigs over here. I'm based in Cardiff at the moment, and it was all Irish women I was going to, whether they were comedians or singers or um, just, yeah. And I was just in awe, and I was just like, fair play to us, like, putting ourselves out there. And so that's where the idea came from. But when you think of the term Nona Heron, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think for me, it's the iconic image of Countess Markovich, the lady from Sligo who was the first female member of Parliament. And she was involved in the Easter Rising. She also worked with the poor and the liberties. But she broke the mold for women. In so many ways. And actually, I was just reading earlier today, W.B. Yeats initially in a poem was quite degrading of her and mentioned where the place of the woman should be and raising children and being at home, but then he reflected, it seems, a number of years later, and he rewrote again of how he admired her, because remember, she was going against the grain. She was doing something for the first time. She was creating a path for a woman that hadn't been created. you know it led to women being able to vote. That's not a long time ago. You know what I mean? Our republic is not that old if you think about it, over 100 years, and we still have a long way to go. And as someone who grew up in a border county and who grew up being a single parent in the 90s, I can see the women that have made a path for women like me to come before it. And similarly, I would like to think that, you know, uh, Sophie sees me as a role model, that she can do anything, that my grandchildren, Maisie and Henry, can have a look at me, and Bobby as well, my son, that they say, well, my mum's done it, so why can't I do it? And so I'd be a huge champion for any woman that is brave enough to go into politics, because it's not easy. I think it's the most difficult job out there. But if we don't have women that are willing to put their names forward on a ballot paper, then we're not truly going to have um, appropriate and necessary gender balance in our parliaments across the world. And Ireland is a laggard when it comes to female representation, but I can understand why they find it difficult. So Countess Markovich is definitely a woman I think worth celebrating.
Would you go into politics yourself?
Well, I didn't mention that I did try it once.
Did you?
I did. When I was pregnant with my son Bobby, I was 6 months pregnant and I was canvassing the doors of Donegal, attempting to become the first female councillor in Donegal County Council for the Letterkenny municipal area. Would you believe I lost by 38 votes, I believe? Went to 3:30 in the morning and Ian McGarvey won and he became Ireland's oldest mayor a couple of years later. It was youth versus experience, but you know what? It was always in me to try it. I would never do it again. I think my place is definitely in a place of advocating and helping with improving their communications. But yeah, obviously I have a huge interest, but if you gave me a seat, I wouldn't take it because I look at just the vitriol and the hate and the deep fake situation, and I just think it's kind of soul destroying.
So I spend a lot of time in the comments section on social media, social listening. And yeah, I mean, level of vitriol, like you said, like it's just unbelievable. Yeah, it's a tough time, I think, to be a female politician. Um, but I still think you did great, Joanne. So we move on to the next question. So who are the Irish women you look up to? I know you kind of mentioned some there, but were there any other ones?
Well, I think we have to look at our female president in this country, just remarkable women, like the two Marys, and we have Catherine. Like, oh my goodness me, they really made their mark, and they're still making their mark. If you look at what Mary Robinson is doing now, Mary McLeish, and I love just following what Catherine Connolly is doing. She's early on in her presidency, but she really got the attention of the nation, didn't she? In her campaign, she really resonated. And I think at a time when people feel disenfranchised by politics, to have somebody who unites across all party politics, I think that's lovely to see. She also engaged the youth as a Gael Gore. That really resonated too. The revival of the Irish language. I think people found that that was important and they really appreciated her for that. And of course, she's also from Galway, and Galway has had two presidents in the last, what, 14 years. Mike, he had two terms and now she's in. So for 21 years, we'll have two Galway presidents.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. Very good. Yeah. I think Catherine Connolly, I mean, I was looking from afar, obviously. So, but the Gaeilgeoir and the Irish language really resonated over here, I think, for the Irish diaspora. And interestingly, I'm learning Irish again. And
My who?
Mahu, Gur Mahagut. And I see it here, the revival, of Irish groups and feeling really proud of the Irish language. I learned it obviously in school. And, when I was trying to go back at it, like, it's all coming back now, but it took a while to come out. And yeah, so I need to keep going though. But yeah, I think it's really great that it's the Irish language has revived, and obviously Catherine Colony, that was something that I think people really appreciated. So yeah, so then just for you, what does being an Irish woman mean to you? A ban a Heron, a woman on a Heron?
Can I just say, I travel all over the world for work, and we are a wonderful export, and we get so warmly welcomed wherever we go. I am always just amazed at, you know, just how well you're treated, how curious people are about Ireland, how such respect and regard they have for our country. And I just feel so proud. And I definitely want to share with them everything that I know. And actually, I was over in London recently, and a client had flown in from the Middle East, and I prepared a little gift at the end because we'd spent 5 days together, and I wanted to share a bit of our culture, even though we were in London. And a group of students from Atlantic Technological University in Galway actually handmade a little small frame picture. So they crocheted a shamrock and they hand wrote in gold writing um, my favorite Irish phrase, which I think we'll get to. But they loved it. And I told the story of what that meant. And I tried to link our culture with a phrase from their culture. And they really appreciated it. And then somebody started talking to me about W.B. Yeats as well. And, you know, I think as a nation, we punch on the rugby pitch. We punch when it comes to business. We've got, you know, the major tech companies with European headquarters in Dublin. And we punch in so many other ways. Arts, movies. I mean, my God, look at Jessie, what she's doing at the moment. Jessie Buckley, she's doing amazing. And then for me, you know, heading off on my own across the world, um, I just feel so proud. But it's not just what I'm bringing. My Irishness, my nationality, and the regard that people have for us as citizens travels so well.
It definitely does. So, the best advice you were given from an Irish woman?
Well, I have to go back to my English teacher, Alison, who was this gorgeous woman with red hair. And she loved wearing red lipstick. And the guys were just in awe of her, but I was in awe of how she taught us Shakespeare and we learned Hamlet for the Leaving Cert. And as an avid writer, remember I was back at school and Sophie was only a baby and I was washing dishes and I was finding myself in my school and in my writing, and I would write a lot of the essays. They were quite sad because I was sad and they were quite personal. She knew what I was doing and she said to me, "You are an amazing writer." She said, "Keep writing." And she knew I wanted to be a journalist. And I've always kept that. At times when I got stuck personally or professionally, I'd pick up the pen and I'd write. And it's been cathartic for me. It now helps me because I write for a profession. Um, and hopefully at some stage I will write more books that will not be business books, but that will be more personal. And I always thank Alison for seeing my potential and for giving me that encouragement because her words often ring in my ears. And I'll have to send her this podcast.
Definitely. I was going to ask her, does she know that she had such an impact on you?
Don't think she does. I think in the early days, you know, she would have known, but I haven't seen her in many years. But I will definitely, this will be opportunity to find her on Facebook and send her the link to this podcast.
Definitely. And, you know, the keep writing, journaling obviously is something that everyone talks about now, manifesting, journaling. That was how long ago? And she was right, you know.
She's absolutely right. And I have a whole bookshelf of journals right here. And I'd often go and I'd open a page and obviously it's dated and I'd read it and I'd thank myself for getting those words down because then I see how far I have come. Because you can never remember how you feel in a moment. You know, we remember significant moments like you asked me defining moments, but we forget so much. So writing for yourself, real gift for you. So
Yeah.
people
Yeah. You know, I used to write, but I had stopped, but literally only this week, well, sorry, last week, I've started writing each night. And it's great. It's like having a therapist, except for it's a book that you're writing into, you know?
Yeah, and there's something very powerful about getting it out of your head and onto a page.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I know this, and I don't know why I wasn't, you know what I mean? I don't know why I wasn't doing it, like, you know. But anyway, I'm doing it. A lot to do.
Keep writing.
Keep writing. Yeah, it's like, you know, Strictly Come Dancing, keep dancing. And then just your favorite Irish word or saying, and it can be in Irish or English.
Yeah, so I love the phrase Guniri and Boher Leat. And it means may the road rise to meet you. And it's just a phrase that wishes people good success and good fortune and good luck. And that was the phrase that the ATU students put on the little gift for my client. And I just think it's beautiful. And we've got so many of them. We've so many of them. But that one for me just is a great sentiment to pass on to anyone.
Yeah, it's lovely even the way, you know, it's said. It kind of flows, doesn't it? Very good. Now, the quick fire round at the end. Tato crisps or king crisps?
Oh, Tato all the way, especially with Brennan's bread and some butter.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I should put bread into it as well the next time. Lion's tea or Barry's tea?
Okay, so this is controversial. I've been drinking Lions up until 2 years ago, and then I made the shift to Barry's. So
And
there
why?
you go.
Why did you make the shift?
I think I just was stopping at like petrol stations that just had because they have one or the other, right? And then I was like, okay, this is quite nice. And then I made the jump and I picked up my own box of Barry's. So there you go.
Wow, that is controversial. And how many cups of tea do you drink a day?
One in the morning and then one about 11 and maybe one for the 3 o'clock slump. I do not drink coffee. I am a tea drinker.
Okay, that's interesting. Interesting. So that's three a day, and you don't drink coffee. Yeah, I don't drink coffee either. So I have to have some bit of caffeine, and yeah, tea kicks me up in the morning. Brilliant. Okay, well, look, we're going to wrap it there. Thank you so much for joining us on Manana Heron podcast. It was absolutely fascinating to get to know you, and it's been my pleasure. So thanks again. And Gaurav Mila Magat.
Gur míle maga Kira agus á mór leis an podcast.
No, thank you, Slán.
Slán.